a worker or workers had to endure white men running around with, well, a noose to hang them, put it up, full mass. Imagine going to work. You're a firefighter. You work at the fire department. Firefighters chased a black coworker with a noose at work. Jordan Hastings and Jay Droney, two volunteer firefighters from Millville, Delaware, are receiving criticism, and they have been fired and charged with hate crimes. This is how you do it. On April 9th, 2024, Delaware State Police were notified of the incident by the Millville Volunteer Company administration. It happened 14 months earlier when Jay Droney, 27, of Millville, and Jordan Hastings, 23, of Delmar, chased a fellow firefighter around the station while carrying a rope tied in the shape of a noose, according to the cops. The Millville administration said they first heard about it last week. This is actually an amazing and ironic story. So Droney made a racist comment toward the victim as they chased him. All right, that qualifies a hate crime. The noose should. That's according to the cops. Investigators also said Droney made additional racist comments to the victim on multiple occasions after the first incident. Warrants were obtained for Droney and Hastings on Tuesday. They turned themselves in and faced charges of hate crimes, conspiracy, harassment, but both were dismissed from the fire company. Delaware House Speaker Melissa Minor Brown, Majority Leader Carrie Evelyn Harris, and Majority Whip Ed Osinski issued a joint statement agreeing, quote, lynching is not a joke. Can I just say it's sad in 2025 that three politicians signing a document that says lynching is not a joke is newsworthy? But it is. Because there are so many in power who believe lynching is a joke. Adding that many of their family members, quote, lived in fear of and fought against lynching. Quote, it is something that Black Americans still, unfortunately, live in fear of. They said, quote, no one, and especially not someone who puts their safety on the line to protect others, should ever be subjected to the kind of hateful and threatening behavior that a Millville Volunteer Fire Company employee went through at the hands of his colleagues. End quote. It's unclear why so much time transpired between the actual incident and the reporting of it. Remember, we got a 14-month delay. 14 months. A portion of the fire company statement reads, quote, MVFC identified two volunteer members accused of racially harassing behavior towards an employee. As a result of that internal investigation, fire company has decided to permanently revoke the memberships of the two volunteer members. They are no longer members of the fire company. It is important to note that the Delaware State Police has arrested the two individuals connected to the matter, both charged with hate crimes. The 14 months is a question. I grant you that. It's a real question. We don't have that answer yet. But here's what is not a question. When the right power or powers that be found out that this happened, it didn't matter that it happened 14 months ago. You see, to me, that's a glass half full dynamic. That's a very beautiful thing because typically that's the reason to ignore it even more for many. See, 14 months is still within the 2-year statute of limitation. You have the ability to prosecute. They investigated, found it to be true, so it didn't matter if it happened 14 months ago or yesterday. Delaware Police, they get involved immediately. They arrest them. And then the fire company, not only do they fire the individuals, they release a statement and they go above and beyond. Not that 2 individuals have been dismissed. We don't discuss personnel matters beyond that. No. Here's who they are. Here's what they did. And by the way, they were arrested and hate crime charges were affixed. All right, Jackson, rarely do we have a story that gave everything that we would typically fight for: justice, an apology, redemption, right? But this story does, except for the 14-month delay. That's an issue. We'll figure that out at some point. What say you?
Yeah, except for that, I guess we can't have everything perfect, especially in an environment like this where just the appetite for racism and segregation and white supremacy has been increasing for over a decade now. So, that absolutely plays into people
Yeah.
feeling comfortable that they can do stuff like this at all. So it's very important that we're able to see some justice and see some consequences for things like this, just to make it a little bit easier to reel it in. I think that one of the good things, I mean, it's horrible that Donald Trump and everyone in his administration is completely incompetent, but it's also kind of good that they're completely incompetent because they can only do so much of their sinister plans. You look at how they're carrying out their mass deportation. Sure, they're sending wrong, they're sending wrong people to El Salvador out of incompetency, but they can't really deport 10 million plus people. They're showing that obviously they don't have that ability. So it's good that we can see some consequences. And that's why I say, again, it's up to us to continue to push for it.
That's right. And once again, it came down to leadership. The right leader heard the story and everything else happened from there.